Hello, it's the Friday Talkie. I'm playing Gran Turismo 5 right now as I speak to you, as I record this video. It's true. I'm playing, what is it called, B-Spec. Yeah, I had actually completely ignored this mode when I first got it. I ignored it on Gran Turismo 4, and I had been ignoring it on Gran Turismo 5. But then Dino the Legend 87 pointed out, I think it was while we were in chat, that you can get money and cars in B-Spec mode. And okay, yeah, you might not necessarily want to sit there and watch the car driving itself, but it's a really great thing to do while you're doing something else. So you can get money and cars while the computer drives itself, basically, which is exactly what I'm doing now. I should probably go and check it, because it'll have finished this race in a minute. I'm currently driving a Ferrari 512BB against a bunch of hot hatches. I don't know why it lets me do that, but it does, so that's what I'm doing. Now, that's not actually what I want to talk about. I just thought I'd mention it because it amused me. What I want to talk about right now is how to describe it. The difference in gaming history, shall we say, between North America and the UK and Europe. I've always been aware that things have been a bit different, that the histories are different, attitudes to some systems are different, and those attitudes are different because of how the market worked in the respective regions. And I got thinking about this because of a couple of messages from a chap called Red Knight 2476. Thank you very much for your email. I know I haven't replied, I'm an ignorant pig, and I just thought I would speak about it here. It seems like a better way to respond. He sent me a very long email. Actually, first of all, he sent me a message which I have, with his permission, posted on my blog. If you go to my website, link down there, there's a blog entry where I've got a Q&A video posted, and he sent a very interesting response to that, and it was so interesting I asked him, can I post that on my blog? And he said sure, so I did. Have a look at that. That was referring to the Amiga and how the Amiga market differed hugely in North America to in the UK and Europe, and that brought him onto this other subject, basically of just how the computer and gaming market is so very different over there to over here. And a lot of I knew that it was different, but I didn't realize how different. And what I really didn't know was how different the computer market was, and that it was in fact completely separate from the console gaming market. Like the only places you could get computers were specialist shops, and then you were lucky if you could get anything other than a PC, and it so completely separate, like gaming here, computers here, never the two shall meet, and I found that very odd. So I wanted to talk about how it is here and why attitudes to gaming in the UK are very different to how they are in North America. And to do that, I'm actually going to describe how, well, my own experience really with gaming right from the start, computers and gaming, because in the UK there is was no separation between home computers and gaming. Yes, there were business type things, but largely the two, I will explain. Gaming here started in home gaming because you had amusement arcades and whatnot, very early 70s, and before that with your electromechanical stuff. But home gaming started in the mid 70s. I'm not sure exactly when Pong machines got into the home, but it started out with Pong. Now in America you've actually had two video game crashes. It's largely ignored. People refer to the video gaming crash, but there have been two, because there was the first crash, which was at the end of the 70s with the Pong machines. The market saturated and crashed, and then gaming started up again with the Atari. And so we didn't really have a crash here that I was aware of. You had your Pong machines, and then you had your Atari. And there were other machines. There was like that grandstand SD70 thing, and there was the Radafin cartridge based things. They kind of just you tended not to be too aware of them. Then Atari hit the scene, and it's like, yeah, gaming hit the scene big time. And there were the other consoles as well, the ColecoVision, the Vectrex, the Intellivision, the Philips Video Pack. They all hit the scene and were doing quite nicely. And pretty much all of this happened in America as well. You had all of those. Then you had the crash. I say you had the crash, I mean you in America had the crash. Complete annihilation of the console video games market. Everything died. All that was left was the Atari in a very small way. Mattel Intellivision just about hung in there as well, but the market died. And you had nothing for several years until the Nintendo NES. You had computers, but they were completely separate. They were not part of the gaming market, if I understand correctly. So you just had this big dead patch where there was nothing. We didn't get that. There was no crash here that we were aware of. Yet, you couldn't, after a while, by what, 83ish, you couldn't get your Vectrex, you couldn't get your Intellivision, you couldn't get your ColecoVision because they'd all gone up the wall. But we didn't notice. It didn't matter. We'd had the ZX81, we got the ZX Spectrum, Commodore 64, BBC Micro, a whole host of 8-bit computers that were popular and successful, and games were cheap. And there was just this really smooth transition from things like the Atari and the ColecoVision, your console gaming, smooth transition into computers. The computers just, from the position I was at, it didn't even occur to me that console gaming had died, that there was a problem with the console gaming market. From my perspective, and I think the perspective of the UK market, people just moved from consoles to computers because computers were better. You could do more, you could play the games, and better games than we'd had on the consoles that had been around, and you could program them, and you could do serious stuff. Not that we did any serious stuff, because we were just playing games, but the fact was you had the choice, you had the option. So all of these computers did really well, and we were playing games completely oblivious to any kind of crash, and they weren't a separate market. The Spectrum and the, I don't think the ZX81, certainly the Spectrum and the Electron, the Acorn Electron for a bit, and I think another computer, I can't remember which one it was, sold in W.H. Smith's, which is like a big newspaper chain. You could buy these things on the high street. You didn't have to go to a specialist computer store. You could just buy them on the high street. Boots, the chemists, big chemist come department store kind of chain, were selling computers. And then there were the shops like Dixon's and Curry's and whatever, electronics shops. You could buy them all over the place. It was just so easy to get a computer. Then these started fizzling out because the Commodore Amiga came along. In fact, the Atari ST and then the Amiga, and there was a nice smooth transition. And this is where the PC kind of crept in as well. But it was you either went ST or Amiga or PC. And the consoles gradually crept in. Now, to me, at this point, I saw the NES. I first saw the NES in 88, 89. I mean, it was released over here in 87, if I remember rightly. Which is why its perception in the market was different, the way people perceived it, and particularly me, because we'd gone from 8-bit machines, 16-bit machines were there, we'd gone from 8-bit computers, I should say, and all of a sudden here's this console coming into the market in about 88, 89, I saw it. It was like, what the hell are they thinking of? This thing's a throwback. This thing is not doing anything the ColecoVision didn't do 5 years before. So it seemed ridiculous, and so did the Master System, because it was like, why would you want to buy a 5-year-old technology when here's an Amiga? And then the 16-bit consoles came out, the Mega Drive and the SNES, and they actually did make sense. Where the 8-bit consoles, the new Japanese 8-bit consoles, were ridiculous, the 16-bit machines made sense. And this is this era of the market that is so different, in that we went from, we had a really good choice of hardware that we could use. There were still the old 8-bit machines knocking around. Spectrums were being developed, like the 128, the Plus 2 and whatnot, and the Amstrads. They were still popular. You had Amigas and STs, they were popular. And then here was this NES, and they all sat together in the gaming market. The NES looked ridiculous. In America it was completely different, because all of those computers, well, you didn't have most of them, and so to the gaming market the NES was an absolute saviour. You'd had nothing for years, a couple of years at least. You know, the 8-bit console market had died, and then all of a sudden here was this grey brick that was your gaming saviour, and it is loved by so many because it saved your console gaming. Over here it's like, stupid little brick. And I think it's probably not until the 16-bit console era with the SNES and the Mega Drive that there's any kind of parity between the British and the US Canadian market. Before that, totally they had taken such completely different paths, and even through that era we still had the Amiga was a really strong brand, where in North America it wasn't. It was like the 500 over there did, well, you had the 1000, I don't even know if we had that, but the 500 was strong over there, and over here, yeah, it was strong as well. But then it went to the 500 plus and the 600 and the 1200, and they did well here. Well, the 1200 did well, and North America, they were like virtually unheard of. The market was just not there, and the software support was not there, where here it still did really well. So if you wanted 16-bit gaming in North America, it was just SNES or Mega Drive, or you played on a PC. But the PC market was still, or computer market was still separate, if I understand correctly, and here it was all so one thing. And that I think is why there is such a difference in attitude towards certain systems. We had more choice because we didn't separate our computers from our consoles. You could do more with a computer, but you could play games as well, and they were on the same shelves in the same shops. Things have really converged now. There is virtually no difference worldwide, really. I mean, Japan has always been a law unto itself gaming wise. The stuff they've had that we've never had in the rest of the world, and I envy them, though I think I would still rather have the gaming history that we have in the UK than any. Europe is largely the same as us, because I don't consider the UK to be Europe. We're kind of next to it, but we had our own market, and some of it got shipped into Europe and some of it maybe did, maybe didn't, not sure. But anyway, I have lost my train of thought, but I thought I would have a bit of a waffle on the subject, because I just found it very interesting from Red Knight 2476, I have to read that because I can't remember the numbers, from his email, just how different the markets were. And I have had, this is such a ramble and completely incoherent that I don't know if it's made an awful lot of sense. But I just found it interesting how just the separation of consoles and computers, how that made the market and gaming history so different in North America than from here. Yeah, okay, I've got a shout out to do, so let me just sort this camera out. Okay then, today's shout out goes to 65 Gamer Guy. I only discovered his channel recently. Well, I say I discovered his, he discovered mine, and then I went and looked at his. His channel consists largely of ColecoVision games. He's got, what, 19 videos here, if I remember rightly. Popeye, Smurf. There's one here where it's snowing and he's out in the snow. I found that interesting because we'd had horrendous snow here about a month ago. Mario Brothers, Carnival, Donkey Kong Jr., Super Game Pack, nice video game collection video. He's got some machines there that I think are just classics. War games, Space Fury, ColecoVision games, and plenty of them. And he has got a style and a manner that I like. I always say that, but then I wouldn't be shouting out channels where I didn't like their manner. If he reminds me of anyone, it would be Marlin Lee. His attitude and general game playing style are it's similar. It just reminds me of Marlin Lee, and that is a very good thing because I love Marlin Lee's channel. Maybe it's a southern thing, I don't know. Very laid back, unassuming, calm, and I like that. I think it's great. Yes, I mean there's not a lot else I can say. It's a nice channel. I like ColecoVision games. I haven't got many myself. I want to get more at some point. And I always enjoy watching them, and I always enjoy people talking about them as they play them, which is what he does here. So yeah, definitely worth going along and taking a look. I've subscribed. Great channel. 65 Gamer Guy. Okay, closing comments. What can I say in closing? I don't like the angle of that. There, let me move it a bit. That's better. Don't know what I can say really. I tell you what, now thinking about Gran Turismo, because I've just said it running again, I'm now racing a bunch of hot hatches in Lancia Stratos, because would you believe in the Ferrari I lost? I came 10th. I guess that's what happens when you do a rally course in a supercar. But anyway, I am probably going to do a Gran Turismo review. I had said I wasn't going to because it has been done to death, and that is true. But I'm feeling ambitious. I want to do a full review, proper review, covering everything that I can possibly think of. That being the case, it's going to be quite a long while before anything like that comes out on my channel because there's so much to fit in. It will be a long video. I don't know how long. I don't know what the time limit is on YouTube now. But it's gonna, I don't know if my hardware is up to actually editing something that long into one file. But anyway, that's my plan. Whether or not it ever actually comes to fruition, I don't know. But gonna have a go. What else was I going to say? Yes, I have another system review coming up this week. Probably be out over the weekend. It's going to be the MTX 512. Just so you can see what it is I'm using to put up these really cheesy 8-bit games. I've done the research already, so I've just got to record the video. I think that's everything. Gonna have a video coming out just splitting up the MTX games. I just got hold of a TI-99 4A game and I've forgotten what it's called now, Munchman or something. It's a Pac-Man clone anyway. So I'm probably going to fit that in there somewhere as well, if I get the time and can be bothered and that kind of thing.